here's the thing with, and I really don't, I don't want to, I don't want to, man, I hate this because I sound like I sound like a guy calling it a Falgar and Maz at like
Mhm.
like 2 in the
Where's Franco
afternoon.
when you need him?
Like, but it's clear to me that the starters need to figure it out. The
Right.
starting lineup needs to figure it out. And I know that they've been there. I know what it takes. I know they know what it takes to be there in the end. And I know, Seamus, we're only in January, so I'm not pressing the button. Relax over there. I see
No more
you
50-minute
look like one of those
conversations over
cars that
this.
you pull back and you just wind it up and they're off. I don't think I'm not too overly concerned with the starting lineup, but um I haven't, and you guys
Well,
know him. He's my favorite player. I haven't enjoyed watching Derek White recently, fellas.
so
I
I
think.
have a question
Oh,
though.
no.
Go ahead.
So and again, I hate to harp on the starting five a lot, but my question would just kind of be: shouldn't be a thing,
Why?
right?
Why? Like the
They
expectations are high with the starters, as they should be. Like
right.
this is a starting lineup that dominate, and I understand. Oh, poor Porzingis, he's just getting back. He's just getting acclimated. How much more longer can we really acclimate him? I
Well, I mean, it's not just
the
that
start.
because I think that's an excuse, though, is my thing. Where I get it, right? You know, it's a lot of time off, and they need time to get back into the flow of things. But I think a lot of it is self-inflicted wounds with the starting five, where it's like, okay, sure, like, yeah, you know, they need some time to look a lot better, but their play style just isn't even comparable to where they once were. Like just those style of in which they're playing, not even like the product, not even like, you know, it's just they're not playing the same. And I think that for me is kind of where it's like, okay, that's self-inflicted, and that's the one thing you don't want to do. So like, well, I agree. Yes, they need some more time, right? They've played what, 4 games together
Well,
over the past 8 months. Like you need more 6 months, you need more time for sure. But I will say it's a lot of self-inflicted. Like it's
I
like they're doing it to themselves.
I haven't even enjoyed watching the starters play without Kristaps Porzingis, and this is, people are blaming it on Kristaps Porzingis. I don't think it's at all. I think it's them as a collective group. I mean, these guys have played enough games together. These guys have been through the ups and downs together. And listen, they are, like, I'm not saying they're not allowed to have a few, bad games or bad stretches. Like, guess what? It's not only basketball, that's life. Like, you're human being, as much as we all think that these guys are, gifts, these guys are no different than us. They just know how to dribble basketball for millions of dollars better than we do. I don't, on the other side of that, I don't see why the Celtics starting lineup is struggling so much, turning the ball over. They're getting a lot of defensive mislaps, which I don't see happening. And we broke a few of them down in that Sacramento game the other night. Seamus and Randy and I did. This starting lineup really needs to figure it out, because we know what we can get out of the starting lineup. We know what we can get out of the starting lineup on a nightly basis against any team. But I need to see the consistency of that. I do. I need to see the consistency of that. And you said it best, Rob. A lot of it feels as if it's self-inflicting. It's not like these guys are getting run off the court every night. No, a lot of times, and I hate to say it, but Jaylen Brown has been turning the ball over a hell of a lot more recently. When he dribbles into the lane,
They all
and
have.
obviously tonight we're gonna speak a lot of good things on Jason Tatum on this specific game tonight. But on Friday night, I believe he had 8 or 9 turnovers. So Derek White is usually not a turnover machine. He's felt like a turnover machine recently. Drew Holiday not able to finish like he used to be able to. So we can.
Not even that he's not able to. He's just not. He's not trying.
Just he hasn't, right.
Yeah.
And I don't know. An eyebrow is raised. I can't really do it. There we go. An eyebrow is raised. Seamus can't really. You can do it. You can do it. I do want to raise an eyebrow to the Celtics starting lineup, because I know they're capable of doing it on an every night basis. But I really want to start to see that. There's been far too many times this year where the Celtics have got off to horrendous starts, slow starts in this game. I get it. We have 28 wins compared to 11 losses. So, we are finishing a majority of the games out, but I need the Celtics to start off better, because guess what? There's going to be nights where, and recently we haven't seen very good production out of guys like Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser and Nemish Keita and at times Luke Cornett. We haven't seen that so consistently. So we can't just wait around for, Oh, Peyton Pritchard. So first quarter P coming out. We can't wait for that. The Celtic starters need to figure it out.
Well, I want to break this down from player to player because we talk a lot about the Celtics as a collective group, but sometimes I feel like we need to name names. This year, let's start out with Derek White. Derek White has been utterly atrocious for half this year, and it's funny that people still think he's supposed to be in the All-Star race because
I agree.
that just hasn't been the case at all for Derek White this season. He's been chucking up shots. He's not making his shots. He's not being aggressive going to the hole. And what's unfortunate about that right now, specifically for tonight, speaking on Derek White, because Derek White's performance, 1 of 6, 0 of 5 from three tonight, took 1 2-pointer tonight. 1 2, ended with 6 points. Derek White, we saw in that stretch, against Minnesota, against Toronto, against Houston. He was really turning the corner there a little bit and really playing like himself last season, really being aggressive, going towards the hole and balancing out that stat sheet of shots. Now we're seeing him revert back into the shot chucking Derek White, the Derek White that's not involved in the offense. And that's undoubtedly affecting the Celtics as a whole. Go down the list. Drew Holiday. They mentioned on the broadcast, we've mentioned it here on our broadcast, that corner 3-point percentage has been cut in half since last season. He's not a reliable corner 3-point shooter right now. He's not really a reliable 3-point shooter on the season as we speak at the moment. And furthermore, Drew Holiday going towards the rim. It's kind of the same conversation with Derek White. We know that both Derek White and Drew Holiday can go towards the rim and get buckets at the rim and really put all those eyes on themselves and dish out to other players. Specifically, if we're talking about other players, who are the other players? It's going to be Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum operating on the perimeter, Kristaps Porzingis, and that's really one when he wants to shoot threes, not when they're just coming off of one catch at the top off of a pick and pop and there's somebody in his face. But Drew Holiday, he hasn't been going to the rim as much this season, and he hasn't really been as physically dominating inside that paint as we know he can be because he is one of the more physical guards in the league. So just that starting backcourt has not been as crisp for the Celtics at all this season. And we're mostly speaking offensively here for the Boston Celtics because defensively it really does hone in on the whole unit and what everybody's doing at once. Because, like we said last post game, if one guy's off, the whole thing is going to be off, especially if you're defending at the top of the key or on the perimeter. But going down the list, Kristaps Porzingis. I'm surprised Kristaps ended with more twos than threes tonight because at one point at halftime, he had 7 3-point attempts. He shot 7 3-point attempts to 1 2-point attempt. 1 2. It was 1 of 1 from 2, and he was 1 of 7 from 3 at halftime. Now he ended the game, he ended up being 4 of 10 from inside the arc, and outside the arc, he was 3 of 9. But that distribution for Kristaps Porzingis, he was just shot chucking early on. The distribution we saw in the second half was much better for Kristaps Porzingis. Wasn't really all that efficient inside the arc tonight, but Kristaps Porzingis, in terms of his health and in terms of how he's been playing, he's settling way too often this season from three. There's too many moments where Justin, you even mentioned it earlier in our group chat that it feels like the first play of the game, it's a 30-foot jump shot from Kristaps Porzingis, even near the end of the game when the Celtics, it felt like they had momentum going ahead and we were going to create a little bit of a lead there. What do we see? Kristaps pulling up from 30 feet. And when I saw that shot, I was going, is that really what we needed on offense at that specific moment when we're going ahead trying to grab a lead? A Kristaps 30-footer? Really? Is that what we need when all of our success has been driving to the rim, specifically with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum? And as for Brown and Tatum, I think these other three players, Porzingis, Holiday, and White, not being as efficient and reliable this season, it causes them to play hero ball a lot more than what we've seen in the past. Because last year, it was really a team effort on the offensive end of the floor. It didn't need to be Tatum dominating every night. It didn't need to be Brown dominating every night. Yet in these games, it feels like there's a higher reliance on Tatum or Brown to go out there and have a good performance because these other pieces on the Celtics, Porzingis, Holiday, White, and you could even go down to the bench, they're not as reliable this season. And it feels as if Tatum and Brown need to take over more often than not. Whereas last season, didn't matter if Tatum or Brown even had 20 points. You could see them score, 15, 19, below 20. And somebody else, you'd see, Holiday with 20 points. You'd see Porzingis with 20 points. Derek White, he would have 30-point nights on some occasions. And the team was winning more as a collective unit than they are right now. Tatum and Brown they're more hero ballish this season. And at times that can result in great games and great performances for them and what the Celtics need. But just speaking on the offense as a whole with the Boston Celtics, they need to be more of that collective, collaborative, cohesive unit this season, because last season that's what won them the championship. This year, it feels like it's all split apart. Guys aren't really playing the roles in which we're used to seeing. And that's when we're not really seeing the best of the Celtics basketball as we know we can, because last season we saw it for an entire season into the playoffs, and this season it's been few and far between. And yes, we can give some excuses out of, oh, they haven't been together, it's only their fourth game together. There's still time to gel. But overall, even without Porzingis, without whoever's been in the lineup, just doesn't feel like the team is as collective this season. We've already talked about it in December, and we saw it again tonight. Even though the Celtics won, it just didn't feel like the team offensively, specifically offensively, just wasn't in rhythm for most of this game. And Rob, you said it, it was like we couldn't quite match our defense with our offense. We'd have good defensive stretches, offensively couldn't get it done. Offensive stretches, we'd be okay, and then defensively, we're just allowing lanes towards the rim. And I want to speak defensively real quick too. I just don't see the intensity from this team right now defensively. Just this is more, I'm talking with everybody on the defensive end of the floor. It seems as if we're trying to make the effort to be in the right positions. And tonight, I thought the positioning of and detail and positioning in terms of guarding on the perimeter was a lot better tonight than it was on Friday by a mile, because tonight the New Orleans Pelicans didn't see as many open opportunities from three as the Sacramento Kings did on Friday night. But still, when you're seeing the New Orleans Pelicans just drive downhill towards the lane the whole game, you're not seeing the physicality. You're not seeing the intensity out of the Celtics. What I'm used to seeing out of the Celtics, or what we're used to seeing out of the Celtics from last season, is really that hound dog defense in which players, he's at the top of the key. He can't go anywhere. He can't get around any Celtic defender. In this season, it just feels like players are moving more freely, whether it's getting off of screens, going downhill towards the rim, getting off shots. The Celtics just aren't quite all there on the defensive end of the floor right now. And I think it's showing in these performances, obviously. Now, will this persist over time? Hopefully not. I really don't think that they're going to be playing with this level of intensity when the season really starts to ramp up going towards the playoffs. I think this team knows that. But right now, it's just not quite where it needs to be for the Celtics on either end of the floor. And it's showing in the recent scores that we're seeing. We lost by 17 on Friday. Tonight, we nearly lose on a game-winning layup by CJ McCollum. And if we would have lost tonight, I think the conversation would be a little bit different. We are touching on some of this conversation right now, but we're still there's still a bit of optimism here because, again, a win is a win.
It's funny you say that too, because I'm sitting there watching the game tonight, and I'm thinking, and I tweeted this out on my personal Twitter. If you're not following it, go follow it. Rob, Celtics Talk Weekly, CTW. Quick little promo, self promo. But it felt like, so you're sitting here and you're watching this game, and I'm thinking that exact same thing. Sorry, we're a week in. We're building it. But I'm sitting there and I'm watching it. And it does feel like we're really reliant on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown this year, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? They're your superstars. That's very natural. But that's kind of why I tweeted this out just the other day. This Celtics team right now, where they currently stand, are closer to the 2022-2023 team than they are to the last year's team. Play style, the reliance on the superstars, it's very identical. Dropping games they should win, being bad at home, being good on the road. And again, that team was a game away from the NBA Finals, almost came back down 0-3. If Tatum doesn't sprain his ankle, history could look very different, right? So we know what that team can still do. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. However, this was supposed to be a year in which this team took a step up. It was their second year playing together. You see Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown kind of truly enter their primes. Year 7 and year 8 is kind of really when you, or I'm sorry, 8 and 9 now, right? Oh my God. Is it 8 and 9 or is it 7 and 8? 8 and 9. It's year 8 and 9.
For what?
Brown and Tatum. That is ridiculous. Is it year 7 and 8? Oh God.
I think it's 9 for Brown.
Yeah,
it's
9. 8 and 9.
Counting by my fingers right now.
Yeah. So I mean, so really this team was supposed to be better and they haven't been. And I think tonight is kind of a perfect, example of that, 9. That's what I thought, 8 and 9.
Going over it twice.
Getting old, Rob.
Double
Getting
check.
old,
I know.
brother.
I know.
Fact
Wow, almost
check.
a decade of these guys. But that's and I think that's the story. And this story is completely shown, guys, within this lead tracker tonight. I mean, like, look at this. It was all Pelicans through a quarter and a half. And mind you, guys, that first sector of the lead tracker, that first quarter, that's a consistent theme we're seeing here, where the team opens the gate and they control the game for really a quarter and a half. And then you kind of see Boston control that in the middle section, that second through third quarter. And then the fourth quarter has been super hit or miss with this team.
Yeah.
Tonight, it was a hit, but it has not been consistently like that. But again, guys, that first quarter and a half, those starts from Boston are becoming a normal trend. And we are now almost officially halfway through the NBA season. Like that, you are what your record says you are. And right now, that just might be who the Celtics are.
That is almost a reverse flip of that Friday night game, where it's like the first quarter, it was, first three quarters, it was back and forth. And then the fourth quarter, it was all dominance. First quarter was all dominance tonight for the Pelicans. And then the remainder of the game, it was pretty tight knit back and forth. I think with the Celtics team, they really I don't know. I'm not sure what it is, because you touched on it, Rob. You mentioned it earlier, and Seamus, you just mentioned it now, where it's like they're not stringing together consistent possessions. So it's like, okay, that was a really good defense possession. What does that result in? Oh, Kristaps Porzingis 35-foot shot. Okay, this was a really good offensive possession. The ball hit the paint, whether it ended up in a three or it ended up in an alley-oop. There was a couple really nice plays, pick and rolls tonight with my boy Luke Cornett, we'll talk about later. And then the Celtics go down on the defensive end and they give up a wide open layup, or they give up a slip screen three. I don't know what it is with this team. They're not engaged at all. At all, they're not engaged. I get it. Dog days of the season. Seamus mentioned it. But to me, I need to see more. Like I said earlier, I need to see more from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. But then you pose the question. Well, how much can we really rely on these guys? Which I agree with. I 100% agree with. And also, I do want to just touch on this really quick before we move on. You just alluded to the 2022-2023 Celtics. The Derek White that we're seeing right now looks a lot like the 2022-2023 Celtics. When D. White first came into Boston, granted he wasn't really implemented into the system, but what did he do that first year in Boston throughout the playoffs? He sat at the perimeter and he shot a lot of threes. Yes, he was good defensively, but offensively, he didn't have much of a purpose in the offense. That's what it feels like this year. He's just standing at that perimeter, and really, if we're talking about him, it's just what he's doing at the defensive end. Offensively, he really doesn't feel included in this offense whatsoever.
And there was a play this game that perfectly summed up kind of the Celtics' problem in the whole Derek White experience this season. And I texted you guys. It was a fast break opportunity where you had Jason Tatum and Derek White pushing the pace halfway through that second quarter, I believe.
It was, yeah.
And Tatum has Alvarado on him, pinned down in the post. White is trailing on that left wing. Defender's playing a little bit further back. He takes probably a 28-footer pull-up three. He misses, right? Up by 2 at that current time. You're sitting there and thinking, is that a terrible shot? Not really, right? That's not like a pull-up, a pull-up transition three. White has been a good shooter. He's a decent pull-up shooter. He's actually a pretty good pull-up shooter. But if you look at that, it takes a little bit more effort just to dump the ball down low into Tatum, into the post on the mismatch to get the 2, to put the lead to 4, right? Versus that easy, quick pull-up 3. And that has been what Derek White has been doing all year long. And guys, that is polar opposite of what he was doing last year. And really, like, the plays like that, you watch it, it's those types of shots. Boston takes about 10 to 12 of those types of shots a game, where they're missing out on about 10 to 12 points per game, it feels like, if they had just gone the extra step. Attack the mismatch, right? Run that killer whale offense. Yeah. Don't bail the other team out. When the other team rolls into Boston, guys, they are hoping and praying with their fingers crossed that Boston is shooting a lot of threes and a lot of bad threes. And when they do, they're really easy to beat because they get so reliant on it. But when they don't, they're really tough to beat.
Do you think it's Boston's been playing bad, or do you think it's teams have figured out the Boston Celtics?
I think that's a great question, and I think it's a little bit of both, right? Because I do think, listen, you've now had 2 years. The league has had 2 years to kind of fully digest and study this Joe Mazzulla-led Boston Celtics, right? And we're in a current time where the league adapts. I mean, me and Seamus have talked about this, I feel like a couple times now on the post-game show. The league is adapting really fast. Rosters change as fast as we've ever seen them. Players are getting as better as like quicker. I mean, really. So I think it's a mix of both. I think teams are starting to figure out the Boston Celtics, but I also think the Boston Celtics are making life really difficult on themselves.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to mention the second half against Oklahoma City.
Here
again,
we
because
friggin' go, Seamus.
my goodness,
It's
we
been a
need to
month.
get. I mean, I don't know when we're going to stop mentioning it, but that was the theme against Oklahoma City is really the Celtics just chucking threes and not making the extra decision, extra pass to the open man, whether it was in the post, down low, or really just swinging around the perimeter for a better 3-point shot than they took. And that's really a theme with the Celtics team this season is just the shot quality in which the Celtics are getting specifically on the offensive end of the floor because we've seen so many times, yes, the Celtics, they want to shoot a high volume of threes because when they're taking good threes, they're hitting at a high clip, and that high volume really helps out with that, and they can really run ahead teams. However, at the same time, this team this season just has not been taking good threes. They're not making good decisions. They're not making the extra pass. They're not really engaged in what they need to do to make the offense flow in the way it should. And I can't really put my finger on why that is specifically this season, other than, hey, we won a championship last year and everybody's confidence is uber high right now. And they're ultimately looking at themselves going, oh, I have a three right here. Shoot it, shoot it, shoot it. When in reality, it's like, okay, we can still shoot a three on this possession, but maybe one more pass, maybe another pass, maybe a couple more hockey assists to get a better look. And it just feels like we're shot chucking way too much this season. And in this game, it's what's a little frustrating is we think where we see it go away, we'll see it go away at times. Like the second half of this game, I thought it went away a little bit in the offense on the offensive end, especially when Tatum had the ball in his hand. Tatum was just chucking shots early and often in this game, and so was really everybody on the offensive end of the floor. But the second half felt like Tatum really dominated this game when he was going downhill towards the paint. That's been a theme recently with Jason Tatum and this team is when they win, they're usually going downhill towards the paint and they're taking better quality looks. And it's just, again, going along with the theme, though, that this team just isn't consistent in terms of when we're seeing that, when we're not seeing that this season. And it is quite perplexing up to this point. And I want to say one more thing about the lead tracker tonight. Probably in terms of just throw away the result, throw away the how the Celtics played, whatever we think. This was one of the more entertaining NBA games of the entire NBA season for any fan to watch. 21 lead changes tonight. 14 times this game was tied, only an 11-point lead for the Pelicans early on. And the Celtics only surmounted a 5-point lead in this game. And we nearly saw a game winner, which would have made us just.
Oh,
The vibe on this post game. I almost said cry, but I don't know if we
It would have been
cry on this
bad.
post game. It would have been pretty bad if McCollum banked that shot in. And I was thinking when he went downhill, how did we lose this game? How am I witnessing us lose this game on this possession? But we thankfully saw that shot rim out. But that is a point just to other than the Celtics tonight is that this game was one of the more entertaining games of the entire season.